everyone. How are you doing today?
Hi guys, I'm Megan. I'm the Children's Book Buyer at Book People, and
And
this
then my name
is
is Eugenia, and I do kids events and marketing at Book People. And we're really excited to share some of our favorite books with you today.
yep.
So we're going to go ahead and get started, jump right in.
Yeah, these are some of our favorite picture books that have come out this year or in the second half of this year specifically, if you haven't seen these yet.
Yes, exactly. Megan is way better at these introductions than I am. Excuse me. But I was just so excited to share Everybody in the Red Brick Building with you. This book is written by author Ann Winter, who actually lives right here in Austin. Very excited. And illustrated by Oge Mora. Oge Mora is one of my favorite illustrators. I love the way that she draws pictures because she plays with a lot of different materials. It's not just your average like paper and pencil, but she cuts paper and does a lot of fun stuff. And this is the story of one night in a big red brick building where there's all sorts of kids and babies and animals just making all sorts of noises when everyone's trying to go to sleep. Has that ever happened to you, Megan? Whenever you're trying to doze off to sleep and suddenly you're woken up by a whack or a or a pitter patter on the stairs. This book
It's
is
more a pitter patter on the stairs.
yes, the pitter patter. It's like loud barking in my house. But this is just a very fun and, dare I say, noise filled, very noisy book. That's perfect for bedtime, except, of course, as you're moving toward the end of the story, things will hopefully start to calm down as we get cozy in our bedtime, in our bed sheets and under the cozy blankets, and we're off zoning out. Maybe some of us are snoring, so I really love this book because it's a really fun and unexpected twist on your classic bedtime story. And I think y'all would have fun with it. What's your first book, Megan?
Yeah, that is a really good one. I like it for sharing, especially at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So my first book's a little bit different. I know the writing is backwards on this, but this says Vam Penguin. And this is the story of the Dracula family on a family outing to the zoo. I don't know if you guys ever go to the zoo. My kids like to go to the zoo and visit all the animals because it's always a really fun day. But on this particular day, the Dracula family is going out to the zoo. And have you ever gone out with your parents or your friends and realized they weren't paying any attention to you at all? Like maybe they were looking at their phones or having their own conversations or daydreaming, who knows? Well, on this occasion, the Dracula family, the parents aren't necessarily paying as much attention as they should. And it turns out that their youngest vampire and a young penguin realize that they have an opportunity to take advantage of this inattention and maybe have an adventure. So this is the story of a silly switcheroo over the course of the day at the zoo, as each of them kind of gets to take a look at each other's world for a minute. And of course, the silly parents really never pick up on anything at all until they switch back and move back into their own regular lives. So I think if you like vampires or penguins or just funny tricks that people might play on silly parents sometimes who don't pay as much attention as they should, I think that you'll get a kick out of this book. It's a lot of fun.
I love that book. And I think the penguin display might be one of my favorites at the zoo. That and the gibbons. My husband does a really funny gibbon dance. So whenever we go to the zoo, he does it and everybody laughs. It's fun. I have another book I wanted to share. This is called The Big House and the Little House. And that's Big Bear, and that's Little Mouse. And I love this book so much. This is a classic tale of friendship. And, sometimes we all get a little lonely, right? And that is the case of Big Bear and Little Mouse, who live in the same town. And they not only live in the same town, but they even live on the same street. They just live on opposite ends. That's Big Bear's house. And all the way down here, I think I have to look for it because it's so tiny, is Little Mouse's tiny little house. And the thing is, because they live on opposite ends of the road, they keep missing each other. They're both lonely and they're both looking for a friend, but they go their separate ways. Bear works in the forest and the little mouse works in a bakery in town. And so they keep missing each other over and over again until one day, fortunately, they meet. And what happens when they meet? They finally have some company, right? But here, my favorite part of this book are all the wonderful illustrations. You can see all the happy little critters living their lives in the forest, in town. I just love anything, like when you watch a cartoon and you get to see inside the little mouse's house, everything is so charming and cute. There they are having tea together. But anyway, I'm not going to spoil it, but towards the end of the book, there is a big twist, grand adventure that might involve a big storm in a tiny little house that was not necessarily built for giant storms. But that is The Big House and the Little House. And this is by Yoshi Ueno and Emiko Fujishima. I love this book.
I would go have tea in that house. That sounds
It
like a
looks so
really fun
cozy.
afternoon. So my next one that I really love is called How to Make a Bird. And I don't know if any of you guys out there like to think about, what it is that makes up something as complex as a bird, or something that, what it is that makes something alive. And I love to think about things like that. And if you do too, I think this is a really cool book, not only because it sort of explores those ideas, but it's also incredibly beautiful and really sort of an ode to birds and flight and all the things that make all of us earthbound people dream of birds and want to watch them all the time. So if you were going to make a bird, here's my question. What do you think you would need first? Maybe some really tiny bones, right? That don't really weigh anything at all, because that is what is going to help your bird float on air, right?
Yes.
But what else might you need? You might need, Eugenia, can you think of something they might need?
Some feathers?
Yeah, some feathers to keep the bird warm, a heart, a little heart that's going to keep your bird going and keep it steady as it flies over oceans and continents and all the places that birds like to go. And I think that then you might just have a bird, right?
Ooh.
But that bird doesn't know how to fly. And so to make a real bird, you have to think about how you would teach your bird to get up the courage and the motivation and the inspiration to fly. And that is what I love about this book, because it is about finding that sort of impossible thing that would take a model of a bird and turn it into something that can really fly.
Oh, I love that. I love that book. You know what birds don't fly? Penguins.
Vampires sometimes do that.
Vampires do fly, right? I have one last book to share with y'all. And this is one of my favorite books that came out this year. And it's perfect for anyone who is looking to go on an adventure, possibly in a faraway land. This is called My First Day. And My First Day, you can see our main character, our hero right there. And he seems to be getting his little canoe ready. I don't know the proper term for that, but we will call it a canoe. And it is the story of this boy as he sets off on adventure in this beautiful land. I'm gonna kind of move it because it's glaring, because the pages are glossy, so it's a little bit shiny. But as we go on our adventure with this boy, we really don't know where we're going, right? But we know that there's these amazing waves and beautiful dark green water. And maybe there's some interesting plants that we've never seen before. And possibly we will run into some mysterious creatures who are creeping through the plants in the forest, watching the boy go on his adventure. So I really love it because there really is this mysterious sense. It's like full of wonder and like, look at all that beautiful detail. Have you ever been somewhere like that, Megan? It's just so
I
cool.
have.
And
Well,
you
that's in the Mekong Delta. Yes, and I've been
yes.
there. It is. It's really cool.
Yes, it is in the Mekong Delta. And the cool thing about this is you do eventually find out where this young boy is going, which I'm not going to tell you, but there are little Easter eggs, you know, little clues here and there all throughout the book. And then at the very back of the book, which I love when picture books do this, there is a note all about the Mekong Delta. And so you get to learn some fun facts about where this is in Vietnam and all the sorts of like plants and creatures that live there. I love it so much. So that is my first day.
Okay. And I have one more story to share. It's not as much a story as it is an investigation
Ooh.
of the spectacular science of the very, very small, which is called nanotechnology. So this is a book called Nano by Dr. Jess Wade. She is a real scientist. And this is a book she put together to help you and us and all of us who don't spend as much time in front of a microscope as maybe she does, think about the world of super tiny things that makes up everything around us, including ourselves, right? So what is the smallest thing you can think of, Eugenia?
Plankton.
Plankton. Well, you know what? Atoms are even smaller than that. And, you know, plankton is made up of atoms. And if you were to look at anything through a microscope, you would start seeing the hidden world of nanotechnology, right? Or atoms, the world of atoms and molecules and all the things that exist, you know, so small that we can't even see them with our eyes, and we can't feel them. They are there and they matter, and they change everything around us so that, you know, different materials have different properties. So this book is made of paper, right? But what is it that makes it sturdy enough that it won't fall apart, but flexible enough that you can turn the pages? That is the properties of paper. And how that's determined is by atoms and molecules and all the cool stuff that's down there beneath the surface. And the other cool thing about this book is it'll teach you a little bit about what scientists can do to change our world by studying things like atoms and molecules and all of that stuff that nanotechnology takes a look at, like making seawater good to drink, things like that, things that we haven't even thought of that could really change the way we live. So that's what I love about this book. I think it's really cool. It makes me think about stuff, and I think it might just make you think about cool stuff too.
That sounds fascinating. I might have to read that book. I haven't checked that out yet.
Yes. It taught me a lot. You know, it turns out like I don't even know all the stuff in this book, and I'm a grown-up. And I think it's really interesting to look at it and listen to a scientist who studies it talk about why it's so important and the ways that it defines all the things we do all the time, and we never even think about that. So I'm always very interested by books that kind of show me little glimpses of, you know, kind of things that are all around us and we don't think about all the time.
Yeah, I think I need it too, because the smallest thing I could think of was plankton.
Right.
So I think those are the books that we have for you today. Just to remind you, I talked about Everybody in the Red Brick Building, and I talked about The Big House and the Little House. So cute. And My First Day.
And I showed you the delightful switcheroo portrayed in Van Penguin, the ethereal magic of how to make a bird, and the teeny tiny world investigated in Nano, the spectacular science of the very, very small. But we also have a lot of other book recommendations. Check out our holiday catalog this year to see some of our other favorite books from the season. And thank you so much for watching and reading, and we'll see you in the store, we hope.
Yes, and you can also explore even more through our website at bookpeople.com. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.